I know sometimes it's hard for you to clearly see just how you're gonna keep it together. Your obligations and responsibility, how you gonna meet them here? Much more than this. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You're the lifeline of the world. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You've been so good. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You're the red, you're the one, the word. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? The light of the new. Remember. Oh yes you are, oh yes you are. I know sometimes it's hard to hold your head up high again and show the world you're out together, together. You think of things that make you wanna run and hide. Ooh, I love you and baby. Ooh, could you trust you understand? Now let's see the truth of it. You are much, much more than this. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You're the lifeline of the world. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? There's no haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You're the red, you're the wine, the word. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You're the light of the universe. You're not the things you have done. You're not the words that you said, or the heartache that you're going through. Oh, you are the bright of the sun. You are the flower, and in your presence, the things that seem hard fade away. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You're the lifeline of the world. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? There's so haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You're the bread, you're the one, the word. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? The light of the universe. You're the light of the world. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? There's so haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You're the red, you're the wine, the word. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? The light of the universe. You're the lifeline of the world. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? I guess the point I was trying to make is better made musically. Check the lyrics. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You're the light lighting up the world. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? In you there's no darkness. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You're the bread, you're the wine, the word. Haven't you heard? Haven't you heard? You're the light of the universe. You're not the things you have done. You're not the words that you said. Or the heartache that you're going through. Oh, you are the bright of the sun. You are the glow of the moon. And in your presence, the things that seem dark feel
Good morning, Open Heart. It's for Tanya. Happy holidays. I'm going to do Someday at Christmas. Someday at Christmas, men won't be boys, playing with bombs like kids play with toys. One warm December, our hearts will see a world where we are free. Someday at Christmas, there'll be no wars when we have learned what Christmas is for. When we have found what life's really worth, there'll be peace on earth. Someday all our dreams will come to be. Someday in a world where we are free. Maybe not in time for you and me, but someday at Christmas time. Someday at Christmas, we'll see a land with no hungry children, no empty hands. One happy morning, people will share a world where people care. Whoa, someday at Christmas, there'll be no tears. All men are equal, no man has fears. One shining moment, my heart ran away from our world today. Someday our dreams will come to be. Someday in
What comes from the heart reaches the heart. Good morning, Open Heart, and welcome to our Heartstream Live for this Sunday, December the 5th, 2021. I'm so glad that you have joined us this morning. I also want to thank all of you that have replied and responded about whether you will be at our holiday party or not on December the 16th at the Harriet Performing Arts Center at 2788 Lamar Avenue. It's right there at Lamar and Kimball. It was a former fire station, but it's now been turned into a very wonderful place for the Young Actors Guild. And it's going to be the place where we'll host our party. We're going to have games. We're going to have food. We're going to have singing and other things. Going to have a good time. And it's an opportunity for us to gather together on that evening. I understand those of you who are not going to be able to make it and know that you'll be with us in spirit. And those of you who have indicated that you're going to come, glad that you are going to come. And if you haven't responded yet, it's very simple to let me know. 901-219-7923. Send me a text message. And I look forward and hoping that I see each and every one of you that can make it. As always, I greet you. I bless you. I see God in you. Our purpose statement. Our purpose is to create a spiritual community which recognizes that there is one presence and one power in the universe, God. Daily, we actively practice this spiritual truth. We open our heart space to each person to acknowledge one another as expressions of God. It is in each other that we see God.
Our daily affirmation for the month of December. The light of God's love. Know that the light of God's love within me opens up the senses in a joyous way, gently and gracefully parting the darkness and making of it a realization of good.
Good morning, Open Heart family. Today's affirmative reading comes from the 30-day journey towards transformation, and I am reading the daily devotion, Dance, and it begins with this quote: "If you have the choice to sit out or dance, I hope you dance." I see them mostly in the grocery store. They have caught my attention. Initially, I was irritated, but then my curiosity was piqued, and finally, I was inspired. Have you seen them? You know, children dancing in the grocery store aisles. It can be any aisle: frozen food, breakfast cereals, cheese, or the soda aisle. These dancing children seem to be 100% oblivious to where they are, the task at hand, and the rules of behavior for the grocery store. How can they be dancing? What song or soundtrack are they listening to? Aha! I have become inspired because I think they are hearing the song of their souls, the soundtrack of unconditional love, joy, abundance, fun, and peace. Unlike us adults, they have stayed connected to the divine instead of connecting to the judgments and opinions of others, the status quo, and the lack of self-love and self-acceptance. The remedy? Simple. Reconnect to the divine. Choose love, joy, fun, peace, and abundance. Restart the soundtrack of unconditional love and the acceptance of our own divinity. And when given the choice, choose to dance.
On behalf of my wife, Emma, who's coordinating, she's at work today. She said to, first of all, let you know that next week is going to be a surprise. But today, we have two people that are very near and dear to Open Heart, very graceful and masterful and all of those wonderful things. Let's welcome Margaret and Matthew Lee.
Yeah.
Good morning. These are your announcements. Mark your calendars and get ready for Open Hearts Holiday Party, which takes place on Thursday, December the 16th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Harriet Performing Arts Center at 2788 Lamar. It's an opportunity for us to come together. I know we've not been together in a while, but we're going to do it in a way that's going to be safe and fun. We're going to have food and an opportunity to share with one another and see one another in person. So get ready and be sure to mark the date because it's going to be a great time. Hey you. Yes, you. Do you love to sing? Well, our Voices from the Heart musical group is looking for you. It's your opportunity to join us in the music that we provide each week through your voice, through your love of singing. If you're interested, please contact me so that we can make you a part of this wonderful group and the wonderful music that we provide each and every week.
Today is a day like no other day. Just think and you'll know that it's true. Days like today should be holidays. So I'm singing this message to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Just have a happy day.
At Open Heart, we believe in the power of affirmative prayer. We're setting the mental equivalent for healing, comfort, strength, and wholeness for all these persons you see on our list and everyone else. We're holding this space for you, knowing that whatever you need is already done in the mind of God. There is nothing missing for you, nothing that is undone, nothing that is lacking. That in the mind of God, it's already done for you. And it's by being open, available, and accepting that you know the truth, that you know all that is needed to know and experience all that you need to experience and feel and see come forth and be demonstrated in your life in this moment. We hold the space for you and we know the truth for you in all places. Our daily affirmative prayer call takes place each and every morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. Dial in as one of our prayer team members shares an inspirational reading and then prays for you, all in about 7 minutes. It's time for conscious giving. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am richly blessed, creating a greater and greater flow. 3 ways to give: our Cash App, hashtag OHSC901, online at OHSC901.com, or by texting the word give to 615-422-4292.
Hey, man, we'll fall into place.
All right, y'all. Let's try to. Somebody start off our rock so we can do the other again. Here we go.
We were together.
May you never take one single breath for granted. God forbid love ever leave you empty-handed. I hope you still feel small standing by the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. When you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you never feel those mountains in the distance and never settle for the path of least resistance. Living might mean taking chances, but they're worth taking. Loving might be a mistake, but it's worth the making. Don't let some helping heart leave you bitter. When you come close to selling out, reconsider. Give the heavens above more than just a passing glance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance. One more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance,
I welcome you to the centering moment. Let us just take a few moments with gratitude to reflect on what has gone before and to open our hearts, our mind, our souls, and spirit to the message coming from the divine through the divine messenger. We are blessed, so very blessed, and we are grateful for this opportunity to hear from the divine. Let us take a moment to breathe in and out. Speak, O divine, for we are ready to hear.
People who've known me over the years, most especially my family, knows that I have this love of cats. I have this lifelong fascination with cats. I've had cats for many years in my lifetime. And there was one particular cat, her name was Leela. She was a small gray tabby. She was small because when she was born, something happened to her mother. She had to be fed by a bottle, and she never really grew like the other cats. And she always looked almost like a kitten, and a lot of people thought that she was a kitten. But Leela just loved me, and I loved Leela. Leela and I were in tune with one another. As a matter of fact, my family would share with me very often. They would know when I was coming home because when I would leave the house, they wouldn't see Leela all day. But when it was time for me to come home, even before my car made it into the driveway, that Leela would come out of wherever it was that she spent the day and would be standing there at the window, looking out the window, and they knew that it would be just a matter of minutes before I appeared. But we were in tune like that, and whatever happened, Leela and I had that connection and that understanding, and Leela loved to eat. And she just seemed to know when I was ready to prepare the food because she would come and appear at her bowl and would be ready to eat. But having that alignment, that being in tune, and it made me think about the passage of scripture we talk about using all the time, that in God we live, move, and have our being. It's about being in tune with God. As Ralph Waldo Treen, his classic New Thought book, In Tune with the Infinite. And this morning, as we move into this brand new season, this brand new month in which we are focusing on light, and it happens to be for us in this hemisphere one of the darkest times of the year, but we are focusing on light, whether it's Hanukkah, whether it's Diwali, whether it's Christmas, or many of the other celebrations that happen during this time. It is when we focus on light, and there's something I'd like to share with us this morning when I start talking about what it means to live, move, and have our being, and what it ultimately means to be in tune with the infinite, to be in tune with God. When I say this, what I'm talking about, that just like the movement that I talked about that my cat and I had, that it's about being in a space and place where we begin seeing every movement as an opportunity, every movement as a possibility for something to happen. As a matter of fact, it was long ago that I had coined the phrase that each day is a day full of promise, potential, and possibility. And I've just recently started adding opportunity to it. But indeed, each day is a day full of promise, potential, possibility, and opportunity. And what I mean by that is that each day provides us with like a blank canvas in which we can take that canvas and create upon that canvas by setting our intention and placing our thoughts where it is that we wish to have them, and begin seeing and visualizing the day that we wish to have, the day that we wish for us to come about. And I know that when I talk about that people can point out, but it doesn't always go the way that you want to, and things don't always happen the way in which we would like for them to. But I would like to offer this morning that even when things don't go the way in which we wish for them to, that there are still ways in which we can look at things, ways that we can frame our lives, and ways that we can begin understanding. You know the quote from Shakespeare, that things are neither good nor bad, but it's thinking that makes them so. And yes, it is thinking that makes them so. It's how we frame things and how we see things. And once we begin taking a hold of this and realizing this and realizing our connection with God, that is God in whom we live, move, and have our being, we can make the shift. We can make the change. This is not only the first Sunday in the month of December, but many faith communities celebrate it as World AIDS Sunday. We know that December 1st was World AIDS Day, and very often faith institutions, particularly those who have their day of worship or their day of celebration as being Sunday, designate the first Sunday in the month of December as World AIDS Sunday. And I know that when I was doing extensive work with people who were living with HIV, I recall a particular incident where there was a man who looked at me and said, because he knew I was coming from, he said, well, I just want those positive thinking folks to realize they don't have nothing to say to me, that there's nothing positive about this, my being positive. And he went on to talk about things, but as he started talking about his life and his experiences, and as he started opening up, he started realizing that as he was talking, what he was describing was the fact that even though he was living with HIV, the fact of the matter was that there were things that he never would have experienced and people that he would never have met had it not been for the disease. And I'm not trying to minimize the many challenges that people who are living with HIV have and the kinds of things and the stigma that very often they have faced and continue to face, unfortunately. But as he continued to talk, he started to see that even in the midst of what was happening for him, even in the midst of things that were going on for him, that since his diagnosis, so many other things had opened up for him. So many other things had happened for him. It reminds me of the Chinese teaching story about a man who had horses, and he had a prized horse who one day got out of his yard, and the horse went off, and one of his friends came to him and said, oh, I understand that your prized horse made off and no longer can be seen, no longer can be found. That's really bad. And the man's response was, maybe. And then a few days later, his prized horse came running back to the man, and guess what? As he was coming back, he was leading several more horses, and they came in and he got the fence fixed up and everything again. And now, rather than having just a few horses, he had a lot of horses because of that horse. And the man, again, had a friend that came to him and said, wow, you gained all these other horses. That's really good. And the man said, maybe. Shortly after that, his son was riding on one of the new horses, and the son fell off the horse and he broke his leg. And the friend again came to him and said, oh, your son broke his leg. That's too bad. That's really so bad that he broke his leg. Again, the father replied, maybe. And not too long after that, the army came around and started taking all of the men out of the village to force them to go and fight in the war. But because the son's leg was broken, he was left behind. He didn't go off to the war. And somebody said, it's really great that your son broke his leg, that he didn't have to go. And the man said, maybe. Again, the idea that it is a shift in life and the constant shifting and flow of things, that when we get caught up in describing them as good or bad and seeing things in certain ways, not recognizing that things change, that life has a flow to it, that life is what it is. And when we recognize and realize that when we can move, live, and have our being in God, it indeed changes our perspective on life. It changes the way in which we look at life. I think most of you have used the jigsaw puzzle before. You've worked with it. I would say that you don't hold up just one piece of the jigsaw puzzle and declare that the puzzle is good or bad because of that one piece. You don't have enough information to judge whether that jigsaw puzzle is good or whether it's a bad puzzle because there's only one piece. And as you recognize that it's only one piece, you don't say that it's good or it's bad, because that's all that you're holding at that moment. That's all that you have. And you ultimately don't know how it fits within the context of the entire puzzle. You know that there are more pieces that are there for you to complete it. And you see, here's the problem. We can't even begin to start thinking about putting the puzzle together if we don't have an idea of how it's supposed to look. We need a picture or something, a picture on the box or something else so that we can tell where the piece that we're holding fits, where the piece that we have in our hand goes to. Sometimes we might put it in the middle and find out later that it goes over in the corner. We might put it down at the bottom only to find out that it belongs up in the top. All of that things. And our lives are like that. We're holding a piece of the puzzle. We have events and things that are happening in our lives in this moment, but it's just a part of the greater picture, a part of the puzzle. So how are we supposed to fit this into the bigger puzzle of our lives? How are we supposed to be the bigger picture? Well, I'm here to tell you that while we may not be able to see all of it in this moment, there is a presence and power in the universe that's greater than we are that we can use. And it knows the big picture. It knows and it flows with what is happening. It is the presence and power that we could call it God, we could call it source, we could call it energy, we could call it whatever we choose to call it, but it is a part of the big picture. The big picture unfolds, and when we recognize and we realize this and when we understand that, then we understand that as we are standing here holding the piece of the puzzle of our lives, that it's a part of a bigger creation. It's a part of a bigger story. It's a part of a bigger and a greater understanding. And as we know deep within that God, that spirit, that source knows how it's going to be, knows how it's going to unfold, and we can become co-creators with God as we continue to place the pieces together and to make the things that are happening. And when we can learn this, we begin to understand what the master teacher Jesus meant when he said to take no thought for tomorrow, to have no thought for tomorrow. When we begin understanding that and recognizing that, we begin to know what it means to live, move, and have our being in God. And I know that everything doesn't always work out in this moment the way in which we would like for it to happen. That we might scream, we might cuss, we might argue, we might question everything about all of this, the supposition that in God we live, move, and have our being, and God knows the bigger picture. But ultimately, when we take a pause and we surrender, it is in that surrendering that we recognize and we realize that indeed this is the truth. This is what we can see in this time, in this season of light, as I like to call it. When there is darkness in the world, there is something greater that is happening. There is something better that is available. There is something that is a part of the shift and the flow of life. And we can get into that shift and to that flow and see things unfolding for us. I remember listening a while back to a colleague who talked about the fact that as he stood in the doorway of his house and the police officer shared with him that his wife unfortunately had lost her life in an automobile accident, how his knees buckled and he almost collapsed. But it was because he understood, because he had a relationship with God, a relationship with Source, knowing God within, that it allowed him, even in one of the most painful periods in his life, to be able to know that he could make it through, to know that he could continue to do what it was that he needed to do in life for his family and for his loved ones and all of that. You see, the master teacher Jesus was always constantly pointing back to God, constantly pointing to the relationship that we have with God, constantly pointing to the fact that in God we live, move, and have our being. And it's something that we are to remember today. It helps us to know that in this life, the circumstances, that things continue to happen and we continue to experience things. But in the midst of that, in the midst of that, when all of that is unfolding, when all of that is happening, that we can begin understanding that God shows up Spirit shows up. As a matter of fact, when we recognize it and we realize that, we can start to see how things that look like they were going one way, they start to happen in another way. And we can start saying that, isn't that just like God? Isn't that just like God? When we see something that doesn't look like it's enough, and all of a sudden it turns out to be enough and even more. Isn't that just like God? It looks like a disaster, but what looks like a disaster turns around and becomes another opportunity. Isn't that just like God? It looks like a handicap, but ultimately we see that what we thought was a handicap, we find another way of doing things. Isn't that just like God? It looks like a mistake, but we find that that which looked like a mistake, we see another way of getting things done. Isn't that just like God? It looks like a trial to bring us down, but we realize that in that trial attempting to bring us down, we become stronger and better in the midst of that. Isn't that just like God? It looks like an ending, but what we saw as an ending, we recognize it as a beginning, a new beginning, and a new awareness and a new understanding. Isn't that just like God? Even if our bank account is zero, we know that we are abundant because just like God, God provides us with abundance, and we are living in an abundant universe. If everyone turns their backs on us and walks out of our life, we continue to know that we are not alone, because it's just like God to reassure us that we are never alone, that we're always within the company of the power and the presence of the universe. Even if illness comes our way, we know that we, because we are divine, and because that divine health and wholeness is our birthright, it's just like God to bring that into our existence and to bring that into our awareness when we're open and available to us. Even if death touches our family and our loved ones, we recognize and realize that in the midst of that, it's just like God to show us the richness of the life that we had because we shared it with them, and the richness of life that we can go living from the lessons that we've learned from those who have been in our lives and have made their transition. Even if we have addictions and we feel like we can't overcome them, that there again is a presence and a power that provides us with the energy, with the awareness. Isn't it just like God to make a way out of no way? Even if we've been falsely accused and truth seems to elude us again, isn't it just like God to turn things around? Even if we've been terminated from our job, terminated from our relationships, terminated in any way, feeling like a failure, isn't it just like God to demonstrate to us and to show us that we are not a failure, that we are not terminated, that is not the ending, that life is not doing these things to us, but that we have the presence and the power of God abiding within us to do all that we need to do, to recognize all that we need to know, and to see all that we need to understand, and to be aware of all that is happening for us. This is our time. This is the season that even in the midst of the days growing darker, the days getting shorter and the nights longer and being darker, that there is light. And isn't it just like God to be that light?
There was a time in my life, thought I had to do it all for myself. Didn't know the grace of God was sufficient. I didn't know the love of God was at hand. You are discouraged, struggling just to make it through another day. Gotta let it go. Gotta let it all go. Are you listening? You got to let it all go. And this is what you have to say. I release and I let go. Yes, I'm only here for God. No, 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 no more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Oh, I release. And I let go. Let the Spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No, no, no more struggle, no more strife. With my faith, I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Oh, I am free in the Spirit. Yeah, yeah. Do you want to be free? Then let me hear you say yes. Yes, I'm only here for God. I know.
I thank you for being so real and touching me, letting me see what a beautiful